I'm Rich Hagon, Brian David-Marshall, welcoming you to Seattle, home of Wizards of the Coast, home of PAX, and home of the Magic the Gathering World Championship.
Yeah, when players start playing professional Magic, this is the tournament they dream about playing in and the tournament they really dream about winning. And it is something that we build up throughout the entire Magic year. We had 4 Pro Tours, we had 54 Grand Prix, we had last year's World Championship, the World Magic Cup, which all contribute valuable pro points to people's resumes to get them qualified for this event. 24 of the best players in the world fighting for that title, World Champion.
It is an extraordinary test of skill and resolve, of metagaming, of limited, of constructed BDM. Why don't we get to the big board, walk us through what we can expect over this incredible week.
Players have to prepare for 4 formats. And on Thursday, it's going to be all things modern. We're going to start out with a Modern Masters draft. Modern Masters 2015, players have to draft it. You know, we talked to a number of the players earlier. Not everyone had drafted as much as, you know, like, I only focus on events that I'm going to be playing at Pro Tour level, you know. Well, now what? You got to learn how to draft Modern Masters 2015. And then that's 3 rounds. And then at the end of that, we're going to have 4 rounds of Modern. 4 rounds of Modern Constructed.
Okay, we come back on Friday. Everyone comes back on Friday.
Yep.
That's no cut on day 1. So what do we got then?
Then we're going to go Magic. It's basically all things standard now, right? We're going to have Magic Origins, the newest set to come into the standard environment. We're going to have Magic Origins draft. You know, players are going to be seeded into pods of 8. We're going to draft Magic Origins. We're going to play 3 rounds, and then standard. 4 rounds of standard, and that's going to be down the stretch, and it is going to determine our top 4.
Right. When they come back on Sunday, they keep those same standard decks that they've used on Friday afternoon, but we do have one change, no longer best 2 out of 3.
Right, best 3 out of 5, and you know, talking to the players before the event, that's huge. I mean, you know, they really had to focus their energy on standard because they're gonna, you know, they all think they're gonna win, right? And they all wanted to make sure they put as much energy as possible into the format that they were gonna be playing the most, especially with those extra sideboarded games, as many as 4 sideboarded games. Getting your sideboard right, huge for this event.
4 formats, 14 rounds, 24 players. Let's get to the big board and show you who's in the field this year. So away we go. Oh, money.
Well, Shahar Shenhar, $50,000. He won that last year. He is the reigning world champion.
Right. Martin Muller, World Magic Cup captain.
Yeah, absolutely. Dane Blast, right? At the World Magic Cup last year, Martin Muller, the winner there. And then your player of the year, you know, very exciting. Came down to the last couple of rounds of elimination at Pro Tour Magic Origins. Mike Sigrist is your player of the year for 2015.
All right, so that's the first 3, 21 to go. Let's roll up our next 3. We have Alexander Hayne, Magnus Lanto, and Ari Lax.
Again, all title holders. Alexander Hayne won a new category of invitation for this event. He is the Grand Prix Player of the Year. That means he earned the most points playing at Grand Prix. Remarkable season for Alexander Hayne, the Pro Tour champion, of course, who went to Grand Prix after Grand Prix and was just always finishing deep into the money, and you know, came down to really the last rounds of the last Grand Prix of the season, but he took the title Grand Prix Player of the Year.
Lanto, of course, is your Magic Online champion, so be interested to see how he fares. In a field of stellar names, he's one of the lesser-known lights from Scandinavia. Ari Lax, though, of course, one of our Pro Tour champions from the past season.
Yeah, he kicked off the season with a win at Pro Tour Cons of Tarkir.
All right, on we go. Next up, 7, 8, and 9, Antonio Del Moral Leon, Martin Dang, Yo Larson. So Europe all the way across.
And winner, 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 right? They all won Pro Tours.
They did.
You know, we talked about Ari Lax winning the first Pro Tour. Antonio Del Moral Leon, he won the Modern Pro Tour. He won, and playing Splinter Twin, Martin Dang, Joel Larson, teammates on Team Tomo, and they both won their Pro Tours playing different versions of the red deck. Possibly, you know, could this predict what we might see from those players in those constructed formats later on this weekend?
Well, we'll have to see. Let's see who's next. Our next 3, as we head towards halfway, we go from Europe to North America. You've got world number 2, Eric Froelich. You've got renowned deck builders, pair of them here, in Sam Black and Brad Nelson.
Well, you know, it's interesting here. Eric Froelich lost the Player of the Year title in that, you know, we talked about Mike Sigrist winning it at the last moment. While he took it away from Eric Froelich. And so Eric Froelich is coming into this tournament very interested to see how he responds to missing out on Player of the Year with a big finish this weekend. Sam Black, of course, huge effect on Standard last year at this event with his white-red deck.
And talking of Standard, Brad Nelson has pretty much the best record in the field at Standard, and indeed anywhere in the world. Brad is just a monster at Standard. So one of his storylines is, can he get as far as Standard, 10 rounds deep, before he gets to unveil his Standard list?
Or his teammates, because they were really looking at him. They're like, well, you know what? We're going to play whatever Standard list Brad Nelson tells us to play. This guy knows Standard.
Certainly does. Let's move on. Our next three to give you are Andre Strasky, Li Shiqian, and Yuya Watanabe.
So Andre Strasky, 2 Pro Tour top 8s this season. Li Shiqian, of course, just one. We talked about modern specialist Antonio Del Moraleon. Li Shiqian, he's got multiple Pro Tour top 8s in modern, but the player that I really want to talk about here is Yuya Watanabe. The big story has been Shahar Shenhar. He's won the World Championship 2 years running. There's only one other person who's won a World Championship. That's Yuya Watanabe. There's only one player in the history of the game who's played in all 4 of the World Championships. That's Yuya Watanabe. He is, we did a little media day with the players. We sat down, we talked to them, we interviewed everybody. You go, okay, you can picture yourself winning the World Championship, and you're going to beat someone in the finals, and it is going to be a match that you remember on your deathbed. Who is the player you want to have beaten in that match? And it was Yuya Watanabe, almost universally. I mean, obviously there was some, people had different, but Yuya. It was, this is the player that all the other players are thinking about here. And, I would, and if he wins, by the way, he evens up the World Championship Series 2-2 with Shahar Shenhar, and they can play best 3 out of 5 next year.
Right. Also worth bearing in mind, if he starts slowly, don't panic. Multiple players have gone 0-3, 1-2 in the opening draft of the World Championship and still made it through to the Final 4.
Yeah, last year, Yuya Watanabe got off to a very slow start. We barely saw him during the Swiss rounds because he had fallen, so far afield, it seemed, but then came back and, of course, lost in the semifinals to Shahar Shenhar.
So, on we go. Let's see who's next on the big board.
Kentaro Yamamoto, Paulo Vitor Damarosa, and Thiago Saporito. Yamamoto sharing the same geographic slot with Watanabe. Yamamoto is someone, by the way, he's put up some very impressive results. He's had some, big impacts on Constructed. He was the guy who played Packrat,
That's right.
in his Mono Black Devotion deck at Pro Tour Theros and sort of introduced the world to that terror infestation,
And of course, top 8 of Pro Tour Magic Origins just a couple of weeks ago in Vancouver.
Paulo Vitor Damarosa, someone who has, had a little bit of a blip. He was probably the most dominant player for the 10 years preceding his Hall of Fame induction. He was just on top of the game, 9 Pro Tour top 8s.
So which Paulo do we get? Is it that Paulo, which is kind of the one we've seen this season, or is it the Paulo of 2012 to 2014, which honestly wouldn't make it really here?
Paulo seems reinvigorated. Seems to have found his swing again, to use a baseball analogy, because he was in a little bit of a slump. Really excited to be playing, really excited to be here, and I think very well prepared for this tournament.
If you like an underdog story, it's kind of hard when there are 24 amazing players. But we'll give you Thiago Saporito as one of the underdogs in this field.
Sure.
He doesn't yet have the Hall of Fame resume, the 5 Pro Tour top 8s, the Pro Tour titles. That isn't quite who he is.
Right.
What he is very good at modern, amongst other things. And so watch out for Thiago once we get to tomorrow afternoon. It'd be interesting to see how he fares on day 1. The case for Thiago is very dependent on day 1. So we'll see how he does.
And he worked with Paulo Vitor Damarosa, so there's a great mentorship opportunity there for Paulo to for the young Brazilian who's been studying under Willie Adel, as a pro player.
All right, next we have.
Okay, so you know what? We talked about players who won Pro Tours, players who won titles. The next 6 players are the players I would be really scared of in this tournament, because they are the players who got the at-large berths for this event, and they are players who just were remarkably consistent throughout the year. Seth Manfield, Paul Rietzel, the Hall of Famer, Sean McLaren, the Pro Tour champion.
I'm very scared for the field about Paul Rietzel. Paul Rietzel has so much history in the game. He's a Pro Tour champion, great. He's a Hall of Famer, fantastic. He's a Pro Tour champion, this is all fine. But right now, he is number 3 in the world. And he is just so good at the game. Such a fearsome competitor, fears nobody.
Right.
Very much someone who I expect to see on Sunday.
And worked with Ultra Pro teammate Sam Black, and that was their little pod of people preparing for this event.
And of course, Formula One's Sean McLaren. They're a former Pro Tour champion. Now, he will have tested alone.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of players broke into 3-4 player groups to work for this event. He worked alone. Li Shitian worked alone. There were Antonio Del Leon, 15 hours a day on Moto, just playing alone. So, yeah, just could be very interesting. And then, of course, we have 3 more of our at-large berths.
All right, so let's see the last 3 competitors: Steve Rubin, Owen Turtenwald, and Jacob Wilson.
Owen Turtenwald. He's had a quiet year. Quiet year that resulted in him, having enough pro points to be invited to compete at the World Championship. He, again, maybe not the 15 hours that Antonio put in, but 12 hours a day on Magic Online.
Just
12 hours a day on Magic Online.
Maybe he sleeps more.
And known formats. I just feel like if you give, Owen's one of those players that if you give him known formats that can be solved, there's a lot of data, there's, you can really put the work in. I don't want to make a pick here, but.
Meanwhile, Steve Rubin and Jacob Wilson, 2 of the softer spoken, quieter members of this 24. Steve Rubin, a lot of people don't know a lot about. The fact that he's on this list means that this year he's been beating almost everyone, almost all the time. Jacob Wilson, we do know a lot about. Hope a lot of you saw the documentary that featured him extensively from earlier this season.
Couple Pro Tour top 8s in his young career. Also working with Owen for this event.
So, 24 players will come together here at the home of Wizards of the Coast, Seattle. It's PAX. 70,000 people will be here in this convention center over the next few days. Who will win? 4 formats, 14 rounds, 24 players, and hundreds of thousands of you tuning in for every second. We can't wait. For Brian David-Marshall, Rich Hagon saying bye.